The following is a video presentation of Lifeway Press.
Romance, respect, communication, I guess surprises, and travel.
The 5 love languages. Touch, sex.
Keep it clean.
Well, that's from my husband's point of view.
A good cook, good food, good love, good family life, good relationship. Is that 5?
I don't know. I didn't know. I came here not knowing, what that was going to be. My husband suggested French and Italian, and
What are they? I don't have any idea. That's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you. I want to tell you right up front what I hope is going to happen tonight. I don't know what you're hoping for, but I know what I'm hoping for. My first desire is, if you're married, that your marriage will get better. Marriages either get better or they get worse. They don't stand still. And I certainly hope your marriage won't get worse. My desire is that your marriage, starting right where you are, will get better because we spend this evening together. My second desire is that you will learn some things that you will feel so helpful that you will want to share them with your friends who are not here, but who desperately need what we're talking about. And my third desire is that we will have lots of fun. Now, I meet people who don't believe in fun, but I can tell you're not that kind of audience. Now, I have done this before. I'm going to have fun, and I hope that you can relax and we can have fun together and laugh while we talk about something exceedingly important. Now, you have a viewer's guide, and I'm going to encourage you to have that in front of you. The purpose of this is to encourage you to take notes. Now, I'm not going to make you take notes, but I'm going to encourage you to take notes. I'm going to tell you some things. We're going to show you some things on the screen. You'll be using your eyes and your ears, and if you take notes, you'll use your hand, and chances are you'll stay awake. So let me encourage you to use the viewer's guide. Our topic tonight is the most important word in the English language and the most confusing word in the English language. What is it? L-O-V-E. Now, I say that love is the most important word in the English language because all the major philosophers, all the major world religions, art, music, theater, literature, make much of love. But I say that love is the most confusing word in the English language because we use the word love in 1,000 ways. We say, for example, I love hot dogs. And then we turn around and say, I love my mother. I think there's a difference between loving hot dogs and loving mothers, but we use the same word to describe all of it. Now, I'm not going to discuss 1,000 ways we use the word love. I'm going to discuss only one way we use the word love, and that is love as an emotional need. I agree with Dr. Ross Campbell, psychiatrist who works with adolescents, who says inside every child there is an emotional love tank. And when the child feels loved by the parents and the love tank is full, the child will develop normally. But when the love tank is empty and the child does not feel loved by the parents, the child will grow up with many internal struggles. And in the teenage years, the child will go looking for love in all the wrong places. I think he's right. But I also believe that inside every adult, there is an emotional love tank. And in marriage, the person we would most like to love us is our spouse. And in fact, if we feel loved by our spouse and our love tank is full, the whole world looks bright. But if a love tank gets empty and we have this thought, they don't love me, they just take me for granted, then the whole world starts looking dark. And much of the misbehavior in marriages grows out of an empty love tank. And tonight we're discussing how to keep that love tank full. One of my areas of interest is ancient Greek literature. Some time ago, I discovered a letter written in the 1st century by one of the leaders of the Christian church writing to a young pastor of the church. It's an interesting letter. Among other things, here is what he says. He says to this young pastor, whose name happens to be Titus, I want you to get together all the older ladies in the church. I have often wondered how Titus went about that. What would you do? Get up on Sunday morning and say, I'd like for all the old ladies to meet me over here by the piano? I don't think so. But he says, I want you to get together all the older ladies in the church and tell them that they are to teach the young ladies to love their husbands and to love their children. Do you understand the implications of that? If you happen to be a young wife and you're having trouble loving your husband, you best find you an older lady who knows how and let her teach you. And if you happen to be an older lady, I don't know if we have any here tonight, but if you happen to be an older lady and you don't know how to teach young ladies to love their husbands, you best listen to what I'm going to say, because that's your job, to teach young ladies to love their husbands. But will you notice the last phrase? He says, teach them to love their children. You mean a mother has to have a class in learning to love children? I thought a mother's love for children just comes natural. Isn't that what they say? What is it that a mother must learn about loving children? I believe it is how to express love in an emotional language that that child will feel. Have you not seen this in your community? A teenager runs away from home, and the parents are wringing their hands, saying, how could they do this to us after all we've done for them? And that teenager is 60 miles down the road in some counselor's office saying, my parents don't love me. They never have loved me. They love my brother. They don't love me. Now I ask you, do the parents love the teenager? Almost always, yes. What's the problem? Chances are they never learn how to express love in a language that child would feel. Maybe they have been giving ball gloves and bicycles to show their love. And that teenager is thinking inside, I wish someone would play ball with me. I wish someone would go riding with me. You understand the difference between giving a child a ball glove and playing ball with a child? Perhaps the difference between the child feeling loved and the child not feeling loved. Now, what I want to share with you in this session is what I call the 5 emotional love languages. After 20-plus years of counseling, I am convinced that there are basically 5 emotional love languages. And each of us speaks one of the 5. Now, there are many dialects, and I discussed that in the book, but they're basically 5 emotional love languages. I want to share them with you, and then I want to show you how this works in a marriage and family. Love language number 1 is words of affirmation. Words that build up the other person. You look nice in that dress. Any of you ladies hear that today? You look nice in that dress? Ah, do you ever look tough? Any of you guys hear that today? Words that build up the other person. You know, darling, you have got to be the greatest potato cook in the world. I love these potatoes. Words of affirmation. Hey, John, I really appreciate you taking the garbage out. Not about time you took the garbage out. The flies are going to carry it out for you. Words that build up the other person. Some years ago, I demonstrated to myself the power of the spoken word. I had a lady come to my office who did not have an appointment. She simply saw my door open and said, "Do you have a moment?" I said, "Sure, come in." She came in and she said to me, "I have a problem. I can't get my husband to paint our bedroom." Well, my first thought was, "Lady, you're at the wrong place. I'm not a paint contractor." But I said to her, "Well, tell me about it." She said, "For 9 months, I've been trying to get my husband to paint our bedroom." She said, "Last Saturday was a good example. You know what he did all day Saturday? He washed and waxed the car." I said, "So what did you do?" She said, "I went out there and told him, 'Bob, I don't understand you. Today would be a perfect day to paint the bedroom, and here you are washing and waxing the car.'" I said, "So did he go paint the bedroom?" She said, "No, it's still not painted." I said, "Well, let me ask you some questions." I said, "Are you opposed to clean, waxed cars?" She said, "No, I think that's fine, but I want the bedroom painted." I said, "Are you certain that he knows that you want the bedroom painted?" She said, "I know he does. I've been after him for 9 months." I said, "Then I have 2 suggestions. Number 1, don't ever mention painting the bedroom again. Don't ever mention it again." She said, "Well, I don't see how that's going to help." I said, "Look, you just told me that you know that he knows that you want it painted, so you don't have to tell him again. He already knows that." I said, "Now, the next time he does anything good," I said, "Does your husband ever do anything good?" She said, "Like what?" I said, "Oh, like pay the electric bill or take out the garbage or take a plate from the table to the kitchen, anything good." She said, "Well, yes, he does some of those things." I said, "Well, now the next time he does anything good, you give him a verbal compliment. You just tell him, 'Bob, I really appreciate you taking the plate into the kitchen.' You just give him a verbal compliment." She said, "Well, I don't see how that's going to get the bedroom painted." I said, "Look, you asked for my advice, it's free." She wasn't happy with me, but she left. 3 weeks later, she came back, said to me, "It worked." Now, I'm not talking about manipulation. Ladies, I don't want to discourage you, but you can't make a man paint a bedroom. But I'm telling you, words of affirmation are a powerful motivator. Now, the second love language is gifts. Gifts. Some years ago, I did a master's degree in anthropology. We have studied non-literate people all over the world. We have never found a group of people anywhere in the world for whom gift-giving is not part of the love-marriage process. It is universal to give gifts. You see, a gift says, "He was thinking about me. Look at this gift. Isn't that neat? He was thinking about me." You have to think about someone to give them a gift. Now, it doesn't have to be an expensive gift. Haven't we always said it's the thought that counts? But I remind you, it's not the thought left in your head that counts. It's the gift that came out of the thought. Gifts. You know, guys, you can get a nice card now for $5. Can't afford $5 cards? Make your own card. Don't you remember how you fold the paper, take the scissors and go like that, open up the heart and write "I love you"? How much does that cost? Get the paper out of the trash can where you work. Come on, guys. Gifts. You know, much of the year you can get flowers free. Just go out in your yard and pick one and give it to your wife. That's what your children do. No flowers in your yard? Your neighbor's yard. Ask them, they'll give you a flower. Giving gifts is a powerful way of communicating love to someone. The third love language is what I call acts of service. Acts of service. Doing something for someone. Cooking a meal, that's an act of service. Anyone still cook? Cooking a meal is a big act of service. Washing dishes is an act of service. Vacuuming floors. Cleaning a commode. Getting white spots off the mirror. Getting bugs off the windshield of the car they drive. Just doing something for the other person. You remember the old saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? There's some truth to that. And the way to a woman's heart is through the restaurant door? Yes. Acts of service, doing things for the other person. How do you find out what they would like for you to do? They've been griping about it for years. It should be easy to figure out what they want, and you do those things for them. It's an expression of love. Love language number 4 is quality time. Quality time. By which I mean giving that person your undivided attention. I don't mean sitting on the couch watching television. That's not quality time. New York, Chicago has your attention. I mean sitting on the couch with the TV off. The two of you looking at each other and talking to each other. Or taking a walk down the road, just the two of you. Or going out to eat and looking at each other and talking to each other. Have you ever noticed in a restaurant, you can almost always tell the difference between dating couples and married couples. Dating couples will look at each other and talk. Married couples sit there and look all over the restaurant. Seldom say a word. You'd think they went there to eat. You see, if I sit on the couch and give my wife 15 minutes and she gives me 15 minutes and we talk and we look and we share life, we have given each other 15 minutes of life. We'll never have it again. We gave life away. It's a powerful communicator that we love. Quality time. Now, when you apply this to children, it means you get into their world. You go where they are. When they're little, you roll the ball back and forth, and the child has your undivided attention. Now, if the telephone rings and you're talking on the phone while you roll the ball, the child no longer has your undivided attention. But we give them our undivided attention. It's a powerful communicator of love. Number 5 is physical touch. Physical touch. We have long known the power of physical touch as an emotional communicator. That's why we pick up babies and hold them and kiss them and cuddle them and say all those silly words. And long before the child understands the meaning of love, the child feels love. Now in marriage, I'm talking about holding hands. I'm talking about embracing. I'm talking about kissing. I'm talking about sexual intercourse. I'm talking about the whole physical aspect. It's a powerful communicator of emotional love. I can demonstrate that right now. If you're with your spouse, will you just reach over and touch each other? Yeah. Now I didn't say poke, I said touch. Yes. Does that feel all right? Okay, break it up. Break it up. It is a powerful communicator. Now I want you to listen to me very carefully. Out of those 5 love languages, every one of us, married or single, young or old, every one of us has what I call a primary love language. One of those things is more important to you emotionally than all the others. Now, you like all of them. But if you had to give up something, you would give up this, this, or this. But here is the one thing that makes you feel most loved. That is your primary love language. Now, sometimes people will say to me, I don't know, Dr. Chapman. I think 2 of those are just about equal for me. Fine, we'll give you 2 love languages. You will be bilingual. 2 love languages. But most of us have a primary love language, a secondary love language, and the others fall in line under that. Now, listen to me carefully. Almost never does a husband and wife have the same love language. Almost never. And by nature, we speak our language. Whatever makes us feel loved, that's what we tend to do for our spouse. But if that is not his or her primary language, it will not mean to them what it would mean to us. Now, may I illustrate? Here is a gal who grew up in a home where she didn't feel much love from her father. And yet, every morning her father said to her, "I love you, darling, have a good day." Words. But if she didn't feel loved, obviously words will not be her primary love language. 10 years later, she's married, but she feels unloved. But if she says to her husband, "Darling, I just feel like you don't love me anymore," he will likely say to her, "Don't love you anymore? That's the first thing I tell you every morning, and the first thing I say when I get home. What do you mean I don't love you?" And he is very sincere. The problem is not his sincerity. The problem is he is speaking the wrong love language. He is giving her words of affirmation. Her language may be acts of service. And what she's feeling and thinking inside is, if he loved me, he would do something around here. Look at him, watching TV while I do the work. Can't he tell there's something to be done around here? Never crossed his mind to do anything around there. His father told him 20 years ago, "Men don't vacuum floors. Men don't wash dishes." Never crossed his mind to do anything around there. Now, may I give you another illustration? Here's a husband. Let's say his language happens to be physical touch, and particularly the sexual part of the marriage. That's what really makes him feel loved. But let's say his wife is very cold and non-responsive physically. It won't be long till he will feel unloved. But if he says to her, "Darling, I just feel like you don't love me anymore," she will likely say, "Don't love you? Wash your clothes, iron your shirts, cook your meals, and I don't love you? What do you think that is?" And she is very sincere. The problem is not her sincerity. The problem is she's speaking the wrong language. Do you understand what he's feeling and thinking inside? You know, I could go out to eat. I could send the shirts out. What I want is love. Do you understand why I would say there are literally thousands of couples who are as sincere as they can be, but they're missing each other emotionally? They're expressing love, but they're not connecting. And they're living with an empty love tank. They're trying hard to love each other, but they're speaking their own language, or they're speaking something their father and mother taught them to do, but they're not speaking their spouse's love language. Consequently, their love tank is empty, and they're struggling in their marriage. We must learn to speak the love language of our spouse. That is the key. If we learn to speak the love language of our spouse, and we do it consistently, we can fill their love tank, and we can keep love alive in our marriage. All right, I want to give you a learning exercise. Later on, I'm going to ask you to guess each other's love language. Just guess what you think your spouse's love language is. Then I'm going to ask you to tell each other what you think your own love language is. And then later on, when the session is over, I'm going to ask you to take your viewer's guide. There's a profile, a love language profile in there, a series of questions that you will answer that will tell you what your primary love language is. And you can see if you guess correctly, you can see if you understand yourself, and you can discover not only your primary love language, but the love language of your spouse. Then I'm going to give you a little game to play. I want you to play this game 3 days a week for 3 weeks. If you'll play this game for 3 weeks, you'll be hooked on it. The game is called Tank Check. We're going to check the love tank. Now, here is the way you play the game. You come home in the afternoon or evening, and one of you says to the other, 0 to 10, how's your love tank tonight? And they give you a reading. Now, if they say anything less than 10, now 10 means I'm just full of love, can't handle any more love tonight. But if they say anything less than 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, whatever they say, you say, what could I do to help fill it? What could I do to help fill it? And they give you a suggestion. And whatever they suggest, you do it to the best of your ability. One guy came back, he said, boy, I don't like that tank check game. He said, I played that thing with my wife, and I said, 0 to 10, how's your love tank? And she said, about 7. And I said, darling, what could I do to help fill it? And she said, darling, the greatest thing you could do for me tonight would be to do the laundry. He said, laundry and love, I don't get it. And I said, that's the problem. That's the whole problem. Now, guys, I don't know how you feel, but if washing a load of clothes every night would keep my wife's love tank full, bring on the laundry. I'd do a load of clothes every night to live with a happy woman. Some of you guys never live with a woman whose love tank is full. I'm going to tell you this, guys. If you ever get your wife's love tank full, you will never want another woman. You will have another woman. Women are different when their love tank is full. And some of you ladies have never lived with a husband whose love tank is full. I'm going to tell you this. If you get your husband's love tank full, you will never want another man. You will have another man. Men are radically different when their love tank is full. You can count on it. And if we will learn to speak the language and play that little game, you'll get hooked on the game. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Yeah, Dr. Chapman, that all sounds good. But what if the love language of your spouse is something that just doesn't come natural for you? And my answer, so? What's that got to do with it? My wife's love language is acts of service. One of the things I do for her is vacuum the floors. Now, you don't know me well, but I want to ask you, do you think that vacuuming floors comes natural for me? My mama made me vacuum. All through junior high and high school, couldn't go play ball on Saturday until I vacuumed the whole house. In those days, I said to myself, when I get out of here, one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to vacuum floors. Going to get me a wife to vacuum a house. You couldn't pay me enough to vacuum a house. There's only one reason I vacuum our house. L-O-V-E. You see, when it doesn't come natural, it's a greater expression of love. My wife knows every time I vacuum the house, it's nothing but 100% pure, unadulterated love, and I get credit for the whole thing. But I know some wife is saying, yeah, Dr. Chapman, but that's a little different. I'm just afraid that my husband's language might be physical touch. And Dr. Chapman, I am not a toucher. Never saw my mama hug my daddy, and they never did hug me. What am I going to do? Well, do you have two hands? Can you put them together? Now, let's just imagine that you get him in the middle. Or if you can't get them all the way around, kind of like this. And I bet if you'll hug him 3,000 times, it will begin to feel a little more comfortable. But ultimately, we're not talking comfort, we're talking love. And love is something you're doing for somebody else, not something you're doing for yourself. I don't vacuum floors for me. I vacuum floors for my wife. Fuzzy balls don't bother me. Once a year is all I need to vacuum for me. I vacuum every week for her, not for me. Love is something you're doing for somebody else, and it's a choice. Now, this concept also applies to children. I won't deal a lot with that in this session. I have a whole section in the book that deals with that, but the principle applies to children. Not all children have the same love language. If you want to discover the love language of your children, you observe their behavior. You look at them. There's three aspects of that. First of all, you ask yourself, how does my child express love to me? Because the way they express love to you is a clue as to what their love language is. If they're always giving you gifts, maybe their love language is gifts. If they're always saying to you, oh, Mommy, you're such a nice mommy, and they're giving you words, then perhaps words is their love language. So you observe how they express love to you. You also ask yourself, what is my child requesting of me? Because what your child is requesting of you is another clue as to what their love language is. If, for example, fathers, your children are saying to you, Daddy, come here, I want to show you something. Come here, Daddy, I want you to see this. And they're trying to get your undivided attention. Quality time is likely their primary language. And then you observe the way they treat other children. You look at them as they play, and you observe the way they treat other children, because the way they're expressing love to other children is a clue as to what their own love language is. Our daughter's love language is quality time. That's why in high school, 3 days a week after dinner, she and I would take walks together after I washed dishes for my wife. And she and I would talk about boys and talk about studies and talk about boys because quality time was her love language. Now, she's grown now, but if she comes home now, she will say to me, Dad, want to take a walk? You bet I do. Now, if my son comes home, because he's also grown, if he comes home now and he's lying on the floor watching television, and I walk through the room, if he needs love, he will trip me. What's he saying? Daddy, fall on me, touch me. His language is physical touch. He wants to be touched. Every child is different. My son, for example, would never walk with me. I wanted to take walks with my son. He said, walking's dumb. You're not going anywhere. You're going somewhere, drive. You see, every child is different, so you have to discover the primary language of each child. And if you do, you'll meet their need for love. Now, if you speak some other languages and omit their primary language, you can sincerely love them, and they will not feel loved. Thus, the importance of learning to speak the primary language of your children. So our conclusion is that if you will learn the primary love language of the other person and choose to speak it consistently, it will literally transform the emotional climate between those people. This concept can literally save marriages. And I want to challenge you to apply it in your own marriage. I want to challenge you to share it with your friends. It will have a revolutionary concept. It can save some marriages. It can greatly enhance every marriage. And I want to encourage you to use it. Now, thank you. Thank you. Now, if you have found this session to be helpful, the next session we're going to discuss another often misunderstood aspect of love, namely the in-love experience. That'll be next session. I also want to take a moment and invite you to my weekend marriage seminar. We hold them from Friday night at 7 o'clock till 9:30 on Friday night, and from Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2:15. Almost 7 hours together, in which we're discussing all kinds of practical areas of marriage. Such things as communication in marriage. My mate won't talk, or my mate talks too much. Communication in marriage. Decision-making in marriage. He thinks he's always right. Some guys, I know I'm always right. But decision-making in marriage. My wife thinks money grows on trees. How to handle money in a marriage. All he thinks about is sex. I don't think so, but it may appear to be true. How to make sex a mutual joy. We deal with all these aspects of marriage. If you're interested in coming to the weekend seminar, you can write the address on the screen, and we'll be happy to send you a seminar schedule. And we'd love to meet you there. Thank you. Thank you.